and we got to know each other even better. And then we started our own company together about 6 years ago.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Laura.
Laura Gregor. I'm here in New York. I joined agency.com somewhere in the beginning of 99. And my background is finance and technology, helping companies use technology to improve themselves. In the end of 99, everybody was focusing on Y2K. And it was a very boring time in the world of enterprise organizations. And I actually was working in a company selling voice over IP, e-chat, e-customer service. I'm like, this is really cool. We need to start using this to start doing more on the front end with business and tying it all together. So I came into agency.com. After the .com change, went back to business intelligence, enterprise performance management. I'm here in New York helping big companies and continuing on, and had a lot of fun, learned a lot of messaging. I was in business development, worked with great people, and happy to be here with all of you.
Yeah, I know. It's so good. It's I love these. It's everyone's a reunion. So as we like to say, where we like to start here on You Should Have Been There is at the beginning. And we're defining the beginning as, that internet thing. Like, how did you get involved? And just give us your origin story. Like, what were you doing? What led you to get involved? Julie, with Eagle River, I guess you go ahead and start and just
Sure.
sort of catch us up on, how did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so I went through a management training course at the bank called First Chicago that is now Chase Bank. And I was really into marketing very early on. I did many rotations across the company as part of the training program, got my MBA at night. And I remember it like yesterday. I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving. And my mom, believe it or not, showed me this thing, maybe because she was a teacher, called America Online. And I'm like, what is this thing? I literally remember the early, like the disc, the America Online disc. And while she was showing me it, a chat popped up. I'm like, oh my God, unplug this thing. Like, literally, it's like, what is this? Like someone random reaching out to us. Like, and then I started thinking about this, and like, it really hit me like a lightning bolt. Like, this is going to change how people communicate, work. I got a modem the next day because you needed modems back then. Literally, right. I got Netscape 1.0. I saved my software. I had America Online, and because I was in marketing at the bank, that's when people started talking about America Online marketing and should the bank have a presence on America Online and all this other stuff. So really, my career started with that experience leading to, I co-founded the bank's first internet group, or it wasn't called internet, it was like online banking group in like 1994, 94, 95. Wow. And then I hired a friend of mine to help us with our first website. And that was Steve Weinswig at Eagle River Interactive. And when I hired him to help the bank, I'm like, wait a second, I should be part of this action, not working at the bank. And so then a year later, I left to go work at Eagle River Interactive. But really, it started my lightning struck moment was this America Online thing. Like, it just wasn't something I had seen or understood, and it was so early. And I think it was pre-Netscape. And then when Netscape came out, the first browser, kind of the consumer browser, that's when really things kind of started to explode with the internet. So 94 was my first exposure. And then 96, I joined agency.com and was there for 10 years, so it was a really incredible part of my career and such fond memories. And I didn't mention, I started in account management, and then I moved into sales, then I moved into sales management, and then ended at kind of general management of kind of running the web group for North America. So I learned so much, and I have so many great memories of both of you working on pitches with you guys, dragging you across the country. I remember like the big, was it GM pitch that we worked on together? I'm still sore about not winning that one, but it was a great experience. And I always remember I would always pull the best people onto my pitches. And I remember going to you guys so often to help me with my pitches. So great.
So I remember. I love that origin thing, like that you had such a clear moment, a lot of the folks have. So Laura, how about you? What were you doing, and what, how did you get to agency.com, and did you have, some sort of epiphany about this this crazy internet thing. By the time you came in '99, it was in full hype mode at that point. Like we were about to hit the bubble, right? The bubble was about to burst.
So before that, though, so as you were speaking, Julie, I was thinking about, so in the 90s, I almost was in the Chase credit training program, but instead I went to Craft Your Own Foods. And so, but then I became a consultant and I used to travel around the country because I wanted to get out of New York and understand the United States. And I lived in New York City and I lived in Sag Harbor. And I remember I closed my house in 1993 in Sag Harbor. And I kid you not, when 9X installed my phone number, voice only, not data capacity, the serviceman made me walk down the block with him to show me on the pole, which was my wire, because God forbid it went down in a storm. I would have to figure out, because we had like 10 houses on that pole, which was my wire. And I'd have to point to them and tell them, I need this because I need my dial-up modem to give me data. And in Sag Harbor, no less, you were not guaranteed to have data capacity. And so I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how are we ever going to do business? I'm like, this is like, are we in the 18th century here? What is going on? So, you know, I knew where my data was. And so just being able to use technology. So then I worked for a company, eShare. We did the first bulletin boards, voice over IP, because I was like, all right, let me see what technology can do. This Y2K thing is absorbing all the resources in the world. This is ridiculous. It's not going to blow up. I don't know why everybody's making so much money on this, but for that, like, period for 3 years, and I'd gone to Europe for a couple of months, and then I came back. I'm like, let me see what we can do to make this stuff come together. And so the whole chat, but then how do you get the front end and how do you build it out? And so, you know, I was always in the impression that the killer app, and what drove, you know, the need for the fat pipe was porn, because people were trying to build out, it was porn and email. And I'm like, there's got to be more than that. And so then, you know, building e-commerce, e-businesses, you know, straight through processing, and just going to agency and having fun and building out those businesses. So
I think you can't. I still think you don't get data in Sag Harbor even today. To be honest.
And I could show you where I don't live there anymore, but I could show you which was my wire on the pole, because it's actually on a dirt road. You know, and you know what? We didn't have house numbers either in the 90s because we didn't need to. And then the fire department couldn't find the houses, and they had to insist.
Wow, so, that's amazing. That's amazing.
But you can land your jet, but you can't.
I know, right? Yeah. It is quite fascinating, those early stories as we go through these. You know, Julie, I remember you had to be on that, like, above the fold AOL page. And if you got that, you were guaranteed like millions of people, and they used to bid it down, right?
Yeah, there was only a couple of pages really that you could advertise, and it was almost like gold, silver, platinum, you know, like type. Those are the early packages. And they're like, well, if you can get this button for like $50,000, we're like, what? You're like, there wasn't like,
that was it.
Yeah, there wasn't like thousands of, it was almost like, if you think about TV, when there was only 3 stations, like there was such concentration, there wasn't really the internet as we know it today. And so it was almost like, I think it was Prodigy, AOL, a couple of these online services that early adopters were using. Yeah, exactly. And so they would kind of, you know, get huge rates, but I think no one really understood it at the time. They're like, well, wait, our competitors are there, so maybe we should be there. And, you know, it was just the wild, wild west. No one knew it. And remember, it was you paid by the hour or the minute early on. What was it?
You buy blocks of minutes.
Yeah, box of minutes. And then the second it went unlimited, like the whole system crashed. Like everyone was on, like, like the concept of, like, again, makes us feel old to even say paying by the minute or the hour is like crazy talk now.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. It's absolutely crazy. Well, what were the early days like? So once you left the bank and you said, hey, this Eagle River company looks pretty interesting. Like, I assume that culturally and just kind of the work you did and how you thought shifted dramatically. What was that shift like, going from the bank environment to?
I mean, it was a pretty big shift. So you work at a big company. Now, I started the internet group at the bank with a small group. So we were almost like a startup within the bank. So there was some experience, but still you were in a huge company, totally different. And I just remember, like, you know, coming to this, you know, a startup where it's just, you got to figure it out. And I had never done client management before. So I started as an account manager, the whole thing of like setting expectations and all. Again, I was a good leader in my job, but I was 25 or 26 at the time. And so I had to learn this account management thing with.
Oh, Julie froze.
Julie decided to go have a party.
Loved working with clients. I loved the kind of selling part of it. And I remember when Kevin Rowe and that whole gang started in Chicago, basically they said, well, either you're sales or project management. So Julie, pick which one. I'm like, okay, I'll try sales. Like I had no idea. And then I love sales. So I, started my sales career at agency.com. And since then, I love. And I think the best salespeople are consultants, are problem solvers. They're asking questions. It's not your like, hey, steak dinner type thing. But I learned sales, really from those early agency.com days, and have really sales and general management. And now starting my own company, really use those skill sets. Because when you're fundraising, it's selling. It's the biggest sale of your life. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What so when agency.com and Eagle River merged, how big was the Chicago office at that point? And
I think we probably had like 30 people or so, or 20, because there was an acquisition, Dave Johnson and his team that were brought in. So it's probably like 25, 30 people. But I think the company Eagle River maybe was 200 people in multiple offices. Something like that. But I remember specifically,
if you remember.
Yes, Eagle River, like in Avon, Colorado, which was the best office ever. But I remember when we merged, or when agency.com or Omnicom, or I don't remember exactly. You guys know more how it happened. But I remember thinking how strong the agency.com brand was. So as a salesperson, it was like next level to move to that brand, to go out and sell. Like I remember some of my friends in ad agencies were like, ooh, you're a player now. Like I remember that, like, wow, Eagle River Interactive may have been the same number of people or a little smaller, but the agency.com brand was very strong within this new type of agency that had never existed before.
Yeah, you're spot on. I remember going to a party in New York just before I started, and somebody said, where are you going to go work? And I said, agency.com. They went, whoa, you must be good.
Yes.
Yeah, must be good,
Yeah.
Well, to reinforce how old we are, when we came up with the name, the original name of the company was going to be The Agency, and I went home that night after coming up with that name and just went on Internic, which is where you got domains, and I typed in agency.com, and I typed in theagency.com and agency.com. They were both available. You grabbed it for
crazy.
Free.
They were both available.
Like they were both available. No one had sort of figured out these things had any value. So yeah, it was.
What year was that? What year was that?
94. That was like November of 94. We were at a WAC meeting, a World Wide Web Artist Consortium meeting in New York. And I just remember it was after one of the meetings, we were having drinks, and Chan said, what did he say? He goes, I keep trying to sell ads to these big companies and they keep telling me they don't have websites. He goes, I think we could build websites for big companies. And then we just sort of we said, yeah, we could be like the CIA, where we come in the back door in our black hats and our trench coats, and we build your site and we get out. We'll call it The Agency. And that was how it came. And then we ultimately
it's kind of like the Facebook went to, not Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah, it was The Agency. And then at some point we said, well, why don't we drop the agency.com is like, that says everything about who we are. Yeah.
Exactly. Kate Johnson says hello in the chat. She's
great.
Oh, hi.
Very successful young lady. So there you are.
Oh, that's so cool. Hi, Kay. Laura, how about you? Talk about
you're minding your own business in New York, and all of a sudden we hire you, I think, right?
So I think I interviewed from Italy and then was hired when I got here, which was fun. And but I came from very corporate environments. I was in investment banking, craft your own foods. I was doing implementations with CFOs all over the world, world-class finance. And then I came to agency.com and I worked on Broadway. And 665, is it?
665.
Yep, 665 Broadway. Yep.
So that's where I started. And then also my class who started with me is Jimmy Valentino. James Valentino.
Right.
Oh, you're kidding me. How did you remember that?
Oh, because he and we used to cry laughing all day. We were like, who is in charge today, Lori? We're like, there's an intern. He looks like he's in charge. And we used to go running all over the place. And I remember like being in car service with him, laughing our asses off in meetings, and we would have so much fun. And I remember 20 Exchange, and we're in car service, and we're coming from a meeting, and he's telling me these stories about he was in Virginia with all these senators about WAP. What's with the WAPs? He's like, what? He's like, I know the Italians, they invented telecommunications, but it's WAP, not WAP. Because they're like, Jimmy V, tell me why the WAPs are involved in
oh, that's
internet.
Hilarious.
But so we get out of the car and people are outside, like the young agents, e-commerce, and we get out of the car and he's still telling me the story, and we're going through the revolving door, and then he's in my section with me in the revolving door, like telling me the story, cracking up, and they're like, you two are crazy. And we were at least twice as old as everybody else that we worked with, and we had so much fun. But yeah, Jim Valentino.
Did you ever track him down, by the way? I know you sent me a note that you and Christine were trying to track him down, but
we haven't. No. We haven't. But yeah, what a funny, talented guy. And and coming, from MetLife, and I came from Merrill. And
now
Kraft,
I remember him. All you had to say is MetLife. I'm like, okay, totally remember.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Lord G, who's in charge today? I'm like, I don't know. We just got a new intern. Let's make him in charge today.
Yeah. You were part of the cadre of actual adults that came in to supervise the kids.
Who we interviewed late Chicago, LA, Malibu living person. I've forgotten her name already. Who's that? Julie, what's with you?
Mylene.
Mylene.
Oh, Mylene.
Yeah, we had Mylene on. Yeah.
Mylene on a couple of weeks ago. That was a crazy interview. Carl was still shaking from the end of that.
Love Mylene. I've seen her in LA like maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. I ran, we made plans to connect, but yeah, she's great. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome. So talk about what was the talk about kind of the culture, and as the Chicago office grew, and it sounded like you were evolving, like you were leveling up as the office was leveling up. Like talk about, I mean, maybe even that evolution of culture as well. Like where did it start, and then how did it change as we grew?
I think as we got to be a larger company, we had more seasoned management come in. So we had people, again, running strategy, project management, so more kind of disciplined leaders that were coming in to create more structure. But I think because agency.com was in early, there was a lot of expertise in the area. And I remember, I think it was iTraffic acquisition that brought in more of the advertising side of the, and that was very exciting to have that full funnel, because it was really focused on websites for many, many years. And I think it was really important that we layered on kind of the top of funnel, or the higher, of getting people to the website and engaging. So I remember that was kind of that next level of evolution. But yeah, from my perspective, being in sales, I loved it. And then moving into sales management, again, it was another huge step for me, because you don't really get trained as a manager. Like it doesn't just come to you. So I know there's a lot of training provided, and also some outside training. And then I remember Omnicom University was an absolute highlight for me, being selected to do that. I can't remember if it was like a 4-day program, or I don't even remember what it was, but it was
4-day.
It was absolutely the best training by Harvard professors, incredible thought leaders in professional services and other areas. So I still to this day take some of those training and the things I learned from those top-notch professors and thought leaders was incredible. And so, after moving into sales management and then running the national sales team, I do remember getting the opportunity to move in and owning a P&L. And at that time we had just kind of the website group, and thinking through other ways that I could take on more responsibility. So that was another great lesson, for me. So I learned so much at agency.com. It was a great culture. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of hard times too during, crashes and other things, but ultimately made it out the other side to continue helping clients. And I think it continue to have a strong brand even after the very incredibly painful .com days.
I think those are the two things. The Omnicom University was also an amazing thing for me. I remember there was a fighter pilot or somebody who was managing the response to a bunch of stuff, and it's like, this is how teams are put together. It was the first time I thought outside of the teams that we worked with, and we were all young, so this was great learning, right?
So amazing.
That I've always taken with me. And the pitch I remember with you, Julie, was the Goldman Sachs one. That I think was the pinnacle of the pitches we did.
Yes.
That was the craziest. There's one moment that you and I are standing in a room full of these people, and we looked at each other and we said, we have no idea what's going on here. We need to
I think it was Morgan Stanley, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was Goldman Sachs.
Laura.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs, gs.com.
No, and I knew what we were doing because we had done Goldman Sachs, but you were Morgan. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So Julie, you did the Morgan pitch?
Yes, I believe so. That it sounds familiar to me. Yeah, I forgot a lot of the things, but I remember Kyle. I remember pulling you into like a big 3M meeting, which was really fun. Like I was more Midwest, but I don't know why I had a couple of New York clients. I don't even know why. So
Laura, was that you on the Goldman Sachs one?
I was Goldman Sachs, yeah, because we were doing global wealth management and gs.com and segmentation. So high touch, low touch, medium touch, and then, doing all the transactional processing. And so my background in investment banking. So yeah. And so gs.com, they had no presence, but Goldman was not public at that point, and Goldman was keeping themselves, and they were the widest shoe of the investment banks, and they were printing money, and they were looking, how do we start to monetize investable assets, $5 million and above is where they'd start, and then the segmentation, account segmentation, and so then how do we make those seamless transactions?
So I remember maybe that it was you who came to me and said, this is how we do it. And I said, no, Laura, it doesn't work that way at agency.com. And you just stood there and looked at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, we're not selling software. We do these things. And you were like, no, it doesn't work that way.
But we did do the first tranche. We could never pull ourselves together to do the second. But yeah, it was a $10 million account. I'm like, we need these bread and butter. And I remember the creative guys going, I don't want to work on it. It's no fun.
Oh, yeah,
I go, listen. I remember whatever shade of corporate blue you want.
I don't want to work at Allstate. I'm like, Jesus. They were like printing money, and they're like, I don't want to work on this. I'm like, oh God.
Right. There were many of those conversations like,
yes.
On that one because it's not pushing me creatively. I'm like, but it's keeping you employed.
Exactly. Yeah. And we can do the fun stuff with all the money that we're going to make from this. And then look at, you don't need a whole color palette. You just only have blue, whatever shade of corporate blue that you want. And you don't need a lot of words. Less is more. And you just need to be financially savvy, and we'll just make a lot of money off of this, and it'll fund everything.
Yeah. I do remember we had a similar client called Allied Signal. I don't know if you remember them, but they made, Fram air filters and AC spark plugs or whatever it was.
They also had their fire extinguishers and all of those.
Yeah. And it was like, it was literally tens of thousands of products in a catalog, and no creative wanted to touch it because they're like, oh, it's boring catalog. And I remember I pulled Deanne Drager aside and I said, whoever was on it was just not into it. And I pulled her aside and I said, can you take a look at this thing and see if you can take this over? And within like 2 weeks, what she realized was these guys sponsored drag racing. And she did this whole angle on when you landed on Allied Signal, it was like, John Force and all these dragsters, and she made it super cool. And like, that was a huge lesson for me where you could work on something that was boring on the surface, but you could come at it and sort of figure out what was an interesting angle. That was actually a big lesson for me, because and then creatives were like, well, now I want to work on it. Like, she made it exciting enough that people wanted to work on it. So that was kind of one of those neat inventive moments.
Yeah.
Talk about, so let's talk about that. We're talking a little bit about projects. What were for either of you, what was a project that you worked on that, was either incredibly innovative, where you're like, oh my God, like we're changing, something's changing, or, we're lucky to work on that. Or it could also be, what was a big disaster? Like any particular moments come to mind, or projects come to mind that were big deals?
We never had disasters with Julie or Laura.
Yeah, they're blanking on that part, right?
I would say for me, just working on some really marquee projects with Allstate. I know it doesn't sound sexy, but just kind of cool that the first concept of Allstate agent having like homepages, having profiles, that was a brand new concept, and so kind of concepting that built. There wasn't just like people, send your digital photo. They sent a hard copy photo that had to be scanned.
Oh, wow.
And
Scanners.
I mean, think about it. That was a long time ago. So really, I worked with the Dallas office on that, and putting that whole concept together from beginning to end was my first major, almost like a PMO, like from beginning to end, to training, to flying out to Roanoke and helping them, these people that don't really understand the internet, how to get the data.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? The internet's going to be big one day.
Yeah.
It's going to work one day.
Yeah, exactly. Laura, how about you? Any projects come to mind?
Did you guys hear me? Sorry, I lost
you guys kind of froze for a second there.
Oh, we thought you'd done this. So.
No,
okay.
I'm back. I just say that was a project for me, so that was fun. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I think, I do think Goldman Sachs, GS.com, I think it was really important because it really allowed Goldman to give high touch at a low cost to different segments of the market. And so being able to have, when do you want human touch? When do you want to have like some kind of a hybrid? And when do you want to have technology? And, looking at things like that, like during the pandemic, having the ability to communicate without being in person, it has been so enormous for all of us, and to provide services and to have that continuity, I think is amazing. But my favorite, so Goldman, I think was great. And I think the work was great. And I think it was a great relationship for a while until it wasn't anymore. But I think it was a very well paying, and it was price appropriate. We made a lot of money off it. So I think that was important. But my all time favorite will always be, Ritesh, when we were pitching Susan Dell. Susan Dell wanted to start a couture because it's all about you. The you from Susan. And we in the Four Seasons. Do you remember that, Ritesh?
Dallas. Oh, it's all coming back to me now.
Michael Dell's wife, Susan Dell, wanted to start her fashion business and wanted an agency to build it for her. And Marissa,
yeah.
Yeah.
And we were at the Four Seasons Hotel in a conference room on 57th Street. And we knew, and I think she's the second Mrs. Dell, but nobody knows that there was a first. And I think she was a marathon runner or whatever. And we knew that she doesn't sit down in meetings. And so we're in this big conference room, the Four Seasons, and they're bringing in food and they're bringing in everything. She's standing, Ritesh is standing. This is going on for like 15 minutes. After you, no, after you, no, after you, no, after you. And I'm like, oh my God, already this is ridiculous. Because first of all, why is Michael Dell's wife coming to us? Why doesn't he just do this on his own? And so here we are. And then finally, we've all realized it's a standoff. Neither one is ever going to sit. So we all sit down, and they're bringing in the food and whatever. And she's all about you, and she's talking about her concept. And she would like stammer. She was so intense. And Ritesh was great. And so we're all sitting through this. I remember like biting my fingernail because I was going to laugh. I just couldn't take this meeting. And then there's knocks on the door. Michael Dell comes in. There was another knock on the door. The nanny and the kids come in. It was just like, it was going on and on. It was just getting funnier and funnier and funnier as we went on. And then we left. I think there were like 10 of us. I forget who was there, but Ritesh, do you remember this? Tell us.
I remember it. I had completely forgotten about that Dell meeting and the Dell pitch. And we actually won it as well. After all that, I think, right?
Did we? No, I don't think we did.
Oh, wait, no, we didn't win it because
I was going to ask if you won.
We didn't win it. No, that's right. But I had completely forgotten about it. And yes, I remember she wasn't sitting down. So, I was brought up in England. Stand up when a lady's standing up. So I just stood there like a lemon. She's like, please.
It was like a face-off. It was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Completely forgotten about it. Completely forgot about that Dell. I do remember Michael Dell walking in, sat down, started asking us questions. How are we going to do supply chain? And I remember mapping things out on the wall. I mean, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
You're the best whiteboarder, Tash. Whiteboard it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I said you're the best whiteboarder. Yes.
I had loved to do that. I used to just get up there and write stuff on the wall. What was the guy, Toco.com, the Ralph Lauren guy who came in one day? Remember that? He wanted to create Toco.com, which was going to be a fashion website and everything else. And I joined agency, and before that I'd worked on Tweeds, the catalog. Mm-hmm. And I'd done all of the back-end supply chain work. So I just said, oh yeah, this is how we do it. And it was all natural to me. And literally my colleagues in the room after the Toco guy left, one of them said, how do you know this stuff? Just did it. We just
exactly.
Blog business, it's no different. So it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Making stuff up along the way. It was amazing.
I was just going to say you were making it up along the way, but you were so good at it. And I was like, oh my God, you were the least technical CTO that I know, but you just are so, people are just in awe listening to you. It was awesome.
Yeah, we did make up a lot of stuff, but we had to because we didn't know nobody had done it before, right? Like, okay.
Sell it, and then build it.
There you go. Exactly.
Julie, do you remember any pitches that didn't go so well? You were running sales for a while. Any particular disasters come to mind? You've blocked them all out.
I can't think of disasters. I do remember there was one guy, I won't name any names, that fell asleep during a meeting and his chair backed out. He was like, remember that. I also remember, again, the General Motors pitch, which was the biggest pitch I'd ever done. And I remember Ritesh coming in, kind of saving the day and navigating between like a creative group and more of a project management minded group and coming in and bringing it together, because this was a very large scale, sophisticated pitch. And I do specifically remember that there was like the night before, it might've been like 10 at night, and kind of just like, I don't want to say gridlock, but like different perspectives. And I remember the whiteboard, and I remember, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. And I just have fond memories of Ritesh coming in and helping us getting it all pulled together.
That was a tough one. I remember that so well. And it's so funny because
very tough.
Agency.com, I did freelancing for a little bit, and I had to go fix the thing we built.
Oh, wow.
Answer for McCann.
Oh, that's crazy. So that skill of
I remember putting that vignette thing in. They're like, well, we gotta fix it now. So.
Oh, that's crazy. I think that was one of the skills that I think we played a lot at agency.com, was translator between different groups, right? This business group never talked to that one, so we figured out what were the common connections, or creative and tech, or project management versus, that was an important role at that time, because nobody knew what this stuff was. So the ability to sit in the middle of those groups and translate, I think that became a superpower at agency.com.
But one of the things I'd be interested to hear from both of you, right? It was easier. There were moments where it was easy to sell something because everybody wanted it, right? They were like, I have to have a website. And I remember we used to say, yeah, it's about $1 million, $1.3 million. And Laura would go, well, how do you know? I'm like, we've built hundreds of. Laura would say, no, I need it in, I want to know the hours. I want to see how it, we're like, okay, 1.5 million. But then a moment came where people started saying, hang on, no, why is it $1 million? Like, did you get to that? Was it easier to sell? And then, as 1999, 2000, we started to get people questioning us. What was that difficult to move, to shift? Julie, I mean, you were.
I think the shift. Yeah, I think the shift was, every dollar was questioned for that cash. So it wasn't just what we were doing; it was across the board. And I think it forced us to really invest more in the strategy and really focused on ROI. I know we did some of that in the early days, but I think that was more important. I think we had to be a lot more strategic, and I think that actually helped us invest in skill sets that were focused more on, overarching business strategy and how this ties into business strategy. It wasn't just about popping up a storefront, but it was, how does it impact your costs? Does it impact your marketing and your brand building and everything else? So yeah, I think it was a lot harder, but then, I think people realized that the future is about digital. And so I think they still needed to invest, but I think it was much more important to have a strategic pitch versus a creative pitch. Yes, you needed to be creative, and yes, you needed to show you could do it, but the strategy became a lot more important.
Yeah. And so I assume similar for you, Laura. You came in at the point where, we were about to turn the corner. So, and you came from a strategy background anyway.
Well, yeah. And I think, over the years, you see a lot of the larger corporations. I mean, there is a whole purchasing group that it's so painful now. And I had been back in finance at Pearson for 7 years. And so when I came back onto the provider side, and then negotiating, I'm like, what the hell has happened? There is like no trust. There's no relationship. You used to be able to say like, this is what we're going to do together. And, you built a dream and they paid and everything was great. Now it's just like, there's so many processes and it's hostile. And so I think, a lot of big software vendors have burned a lot of customers. And so there's not that same level of fun and partnership that there used to be in places.
But I think, was it easier to get meetings and things when we used, because I do remember, meetings were easier where you said, you're the web guys, you were the web experts. Oh, come in. Yeah, we need your help. It's a lot easier, I think, than it is today even, right?
Well,
I think a lot of people.
I mean, the brand was great. Sorry.
Go on, Julie.
I have a delay. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say a lot of people built internal teams. So the big companies started to have internal digital teams and internal teams. And so I think then we started competing with those teams like, oh, we can just do this internally, but they really didn't have great design or user experience expertise. So I think that became much more difficult when it was not like, who do I pick, but deciding between internal and external resources.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big challenge.
For us, though, was I do remember an executive meeting where Kevin Rowe was insistent that we have business development people. I think it was like early 1999, Kyle. Mm-hmm. And I remember Aaron Sugarman going, we don't need biz dev. We're calling us. And Kevin said, you're going to need them. And I think if we hadn't had you guys, I don't know if we would have survived the crash, because we had people going out and actually calling on people and getting bigger work, where others were still relying on the incoming. We were now going out and actually developing the business, right?
And that was also, it was a painful transition bringing on BizDev. The first year we really did that, hiring BizDev is hard. Like getting it right is hard. I remember for a year or so being, very much, I told you so, like, they're horrible and right. But we needed to learn how to do that. And then we did. And I think you're right. I think that was the key to being able to, we've got to go hunting now instead of just, picking off the stuff flying over the blind. Right.
And picking the right stuff.
Yeah. Pick it. Yeah. Cause not all revenue's the same. Right. And
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to me, let's shift gears a bit. So, this was an intense time, Julie. It was, a good big part of your career. It sounds like, it's gone on. Talk to us about, what you remember from those days, what you've carried forward, what you've, sort of happily jettisoned and said never again. Like, talk about how that time has sort of colored what you're doing now and what you brought forward.
Yeah, Julie. I think a lot of my founding. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of the founding kind of foundational principles that I learned were from agency.com. So I think I went on after agency.com, a lot of changes in the company. And I think I've been there 10 years. It was a long time. I was recruited I wasn't really looking, but by Razorfish. And then I went on to be a general manager of the Chicago office for Razorfish, and then, grew in those roles as well. But I think the things I take with me are the cross-team collaboration, how important it is to manage, tech people different than creative, different than project management. I think, Kyle, you mentioned for being able to translate business needs and different stakeholders. It is an enterprise sale when you're working with these big projects, being able to translate that and get to decisions and move things forward. And I think just, the love for the tech and the creative coming together, I felt like the internet or web was made for me because I just loved both left and right brain people working together. So I think when I moved on I worked at a mobile SaaS company. I built a little creative team there. I missed the creative. When I started, Party Slate 6 years ago, it was just so fun. I went to my agency.com network. Mark Simone, who was a creative person at agency, came in as our executive creative director. John is my CTO and co-founder. So I think all of the relationships I created at agency.com were really the first place I went when I went to start my own company. And so there's so many great memories that I have from those years, and I just felt fortunate to be not only in a career that at the time this new thing was created, also to with other people that were so excited about what this new future would bring for business and for how we work and communicate and everything else. So I so many great memories.
Oh, it's so cool.
What does Party Slate do? Could you give everybody some...
Yeah, so Party Slate, if anyone knows a website called Houzz, Houzz, for home decor, kitchens, bathrooms, etc. After planning many agency.com events and Razorfish events and fundraisers, I kept looking for new ideas, how to elevate, kind of bringing people together, either to drive sales or recruiting parties. And I kept looking for new ideas, and all I could find were kind of wedding blogs or kind of dated wedding blogs. And I used Houzz to redesign my kitchen, and it clicked for me. Like, it was another lightning strike, just like America Online. Wow, I need something like this for the events world. So it took me about 2 or 3 years to get the confidence to leave my high paying job to go start this scary new company called Party Slate. But I registered partyslate.com probably about 10 years ago. So I similarly, it was available. I'm like, I'm doing it. I didn't have to buy it. And the concept was, you come in with a blank slate, and then you fill in your ideas, your slate of ideas for your event, but also your vendors and your planners and menu. And so the concept really came to me, and I thought about it, and I dreamt out loud. I had a cocktail. I'm like, I'm doing this startup. Like, when are you going to do it? And finally, my husband was like, you got to do this, Julie. You got to do it. So I finally quit my job and just haven't looked back since. So it's also I love helping small businesses that don't get digital. So I do a lot of digital education and helping these small businesses figure out what is, how do they, prioritize. So I use a lot of my agency.com knowledge and Razorfish knowledge to help these businesses. But more importantly, Party Slate, when you create a profile page, it's like digital marketing in a box. I think we had pitched people like 3M, like, website in a box for global 3M. You can have your, search engine optimization. You can have your photo gallery. You can have everything you need. Within 5 minutes, you can create this beautiful profile page. And then we will send people that are looking for these resources your way. So that's what it is.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Amazing. That's amazing. And Laura, how about you? What talk about your time there and sort of what you carried forward.
Yeah. So what was really important for me, and I worked with Steve Norcia, so he comes from, Mad Men and that whole advertising, in New York.
I forgot you two work together. That's right.
Yeah, we still speak. Steve Norcia periodically. Great guy. Learned a lot from him. Funny. Yeah. And funny, bright, really intelligent person, but really helped me frame. So I like to work with different businesses. So really understand what is the essence of a business. So when you start to really get to what's the driver and where's the opportunity. So working with customers, an agency, it's really about concepts and people. So what are you selling? A concept in people. So how do you make that resonate? So understand their business. So this is what we know about you. And then the big idea, having a big idea. And this is what it's like to make you successful and working together. And that like simple little formula and being able to really understand why are we here, listening and why are we here? What is the big idea? And then getting people around that big idea, because then it's really exciting. And then, you have those like high value propositions and those sound bites that you can keep regurgitating, that people are all on board and branding it and then just taking it forward and then having that success afterwards. Like, this is what we built. Isn't this great?
Yeah. No, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Doing now? What are you doing, Laura, now? What's your...
So enterprise performance management, I'm working for Kira's consulting firm and Anaplan. So around planning, working for, and doing a lot on healthcare too. I'm trying to build out a healthcare vertical because there's so much going on in healthcare right now. I'm trying to untangle it, understand it, healthcare payers, providers, financial services. And so just, helping businesses and helping people create more jobs.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
We should chat. We can catch up afterwards.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure.
Oh, that's super
And we can do some things with Storyvine.
Yeah, we could. There's there are
And then we're going to have an event.
Yeah, exactly. There are stories to be told.
Wait, yes. I think that the only person missing then is Party Slate. How do we get a party involved?
Well, we're going to have the event to tell the story in person. Yeah.
Exactly. We need to get somebody,
Sure.
I think for the next reunion, we've got to do it through Party Slate.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
Yeah.
the only problem then
Yeah,
would be
always you don't plan the party, but you can find your venue on Party Slate. So we don't plan it, but we are a technology platform to help you find the right resources.
Very cool.
So, Kyle, I think the next reunion, if we use Party Slate, will be in Fiji.
Yeah, exactly. Fiji with the fire dancers. Yeah, I like it. I think that works. All right, well,
Go big.
Are you global, Julie? Can we?
We are in North America. We have profiles. We have profiles all over the world in every country, but we have concentrations like mainly in about 17 or 18 metro areas in the US. So our goal, ambition is to be the largest, global event instant platform. So we want to be worldwide, but we think that's probably 2-3 years out for us. But we do have profiles and clients in Paris and London and all over.
So I didn't realize, Julie, that you stayed on for a long time because I think Kyle left fairly early on.
I left 2002.
You left in 2000, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Beginning of 2001.
Yes. And I left in 2000, and at the end of 2001, we had I think 20 people left the York office at the time, right? So, Julie, did you stay on in Chicago after 2001? After the September 11th?
Yeah, I stayed on Chicago, and I remember it like yesterday. That's one of the memories I have, is because I was in work so often, and when September 11th hit, it was just absolutely surreal. I remember, there wasn't really mobile then, blogs and lists, and trying to figure out who's okay. Yeah, and then Don Scales was leading for many years, and when I left, there was a lot of changes happening at the global level, and I was just ready. I missed the old culture, and I was ready for a new opportunity. But I had 10 amazing years at agency.com.
That's incredible. I hadn't realized that you had stayed on, because I think it got merged into TBWA and the Designery and all those people, right?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And they buried.
Trying to suppress some of those stories.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Well, the other thing, Julie, that we talked about this a little before the show, that I'm blown away by, is that you survived the pandemic with a party planning platform.
I know.
Because, seriously, kudos to you for
the bust. You can survive this. Come on.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I felt like managing through September 11th and managing through 2008, really made me a resilient leader. I had a big team at raise a team of 250 people. Well, I think it did help prepare me, but nothing could really prepare you for a global pandemic and a shutdown of an industry. Like not
exactly
3-week crisis or craziness, but like literally no events. Like it was really tricky, but we kept, relevant thought leadership. We did digital education. I felt like I was the Stanford digital education for the events industry, SEO, Pinterest marketing, Instagram, party slate, everything. And so we stayed relevant. We surrounded our clients with love and anything they needed. And we kind of went down a little and then back up. So, we, instead of tripling, a venture back stuff, you need to triple, double, whatever. We stayed flat, but I think staying flat during this pandemic, says a lot about how we reacted to the crisis. So
yeah, it's huge.
It's crazy, but I'm really proud of our team.
Yeah, I bet.
How about you? You're doing the same thing, right? You're growing. It's all working pretty well now, right? Are you seeing a bit of normalcy coming through?
From us, yeah, everything, yes, absolutely. And people are traveling again, starting to travel, seeing events, and so everything, conferences are happening, and businesses are calling people back, especially in New York, right? Everybody's calling everybody back to work all of a sudden, especially I'm working with Citadel and Blackstone. So, the big PE firms are like, everybody's back in the office, like no excuses. So
that's amazing.
So it's coming back quickly, right? As quickly as everything shut down, everything all of a sudden is starting to pop.
Yeah, it's amazing. I went to the office yesterday for the first time, didn't wear a mask. Masks are optional. And I'm like, what was weird about it is it's been, more a year and a couple of months. And it felt like I was just there yesterday, but I'm like, but no, like billboards are different. And you look out the windows and you're like, right. It's like, so it was very surreal. So, but yeah, it's knock on wood that it's coming back. So
over the past year, I had said to my daughter, I said, I keep thinking that we're going to wake up and go, was it real? But wait, why do I know how to do like certain things? Like something, it had to be real. And
it feels a bit like when The Matrix first came out. I remember a conference room where creators were like, that's unbelievable. I'm sure we're in a matrix.
Yeah. It was crazy. Just globally, we decided to all stay home. Like, I mean, if you didn't have something like the internet and this kind of connectivity, even that choice probably wouldn't have been as clear to make. And just sort of as a global society, we just said, all right, guess we're working from home now, and just stuck with it for a year. Like really, really remarkable. But, totally surreal.
And in the beginning, I felt really proud that all the technology that we've helped put out there for all these years made everything still work.
Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't miss a beat because a lot of our folks work from home anyway, occasionally. And so it was, and our contingency plan, like if there was ever a problem, business-wise, is we'd work from home. So it's like, okay, I guess we're doing that now.
Right. So, Fresh Direct was delivering. Everything was still going on. So
all those things we pioneered back then are now actually coming to fruition and showing that it actually does work, right?
Yes. And people just over being greedy. It's like, no, this is for good.
Exactly.
Well, this has been just awesome. Thank you both for joining us. This has been absolutely amazing. And
so good to see you.
So good to see you both.
Yeah, amazing.
So great. So many good ways and so many great people.
We're gonna have to track down some people from Dallas next. I think I'm still in touch with Maddie Highsmith-Coover and
I think that's good. Yeah,
Heidi Kaiser and a couple of other folks. So we should definitely do that next.
Yes.
They were a big part of our tech team. So
yeah, that's great.
Mitesh, you're the best connector in the world and just the greatest idea guy and just bringing it all together.
Thank you. Well, this was all Kyle. This had nothing to do with me. I just had
a failing memory. I'm like, we got to get these stories down, and I don't have the attention span to write a book. So.
I'm with you.
Great to see you guys. Thank you
so
much.
Great to see you.
Great Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, have a
great
weekend.
Thank you guys.
You too. Thanks.